My name's Eli Delaney, and I have the honor of meeting some pretty cool people. These are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the creatives, the game changers that are making a positive impact in the people that they meet. And I'm a firm believer that the people that you meet can get you anywhere you want to go. And this show is my way of sharing them with you. It's my way of also helping you meet cool people.
All right, welcome back, my friends. Eli here, and today I got an awesome interview with a friend we have known each other for several years now. We'll definitely talk about that on the show. But she is one of the coolest people I've ever met. First and foremost, I just got to bet it before I even do any more of the intro stuff. She's a purple person like me. So because of that, she's got to be cool people no matter what. So my guest today is Lisa Manyon. She is the business marketing architect, which is very similar to my title. And we had a lot of fun with that because we both do very, very similar stuff, but we have this unique, really cool, special difference between the two of us. She's also the president of and founder of Right On Creative, the host of Message Matters the Message Matters podcast. Sorry about that. Bestselling author of Spiritual Sugar, The Divine Ingredients to Heal Yourself with Love, which is an amazing book. I have actually read it. And I just recently found out that she actually launched that book on my birthday, which was super cool. She teaches, trains, and transforms on two core topics: marketing with integrity, which we're going to talk about some details on that one. You guys know I'm definitely about that side, and healing with love, which is based on her Spiritual Sugar book. So with that said, let's bring Lisa in. Hello, my friend. How you doing today?
I am so good. It's always fun to connect with you. And we have been connected for a long time. It's been well over a decade because we both used to
Mhm.
be expert guests on a radio show, which is
Yeah.
how our paths first crossed.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, so it was the Experience Pros radio shows where we got connected, but I think that we had actually both been on the show. We didn't get actually connected till after I moved to Portland, because then I
Right.
found out you were in Oregon as well, which it still annoys me that now, a decade later, we never did actually get to meet in person, and now I'm halfway across the country. But yeah, it was cool. We had a great introduction. We both had some similar friends in that aspect, and it was like, wow. And I always like every time we talk, and I tell you this all the time, I feel like you are like the female version of me. Is like we talk so similar and have the same kind of ideas. And that's just, to me, that's just cool because we both have agreed we don't have a whole lot of people that think like us because we're kind of odd in that aspect.
It's so true. And being able to share, have a critical thinking partner, which is what I serve, in the capacity of that for my clients, as you do for yours. So to have that connection with one another and have very similar philosophies in business. I mean, we both believe that business is personal, that we should be doing things with integrity, that we have to actually, connect and show up and, I don't know, maybe do what we say we're going to do. And that doesn't always happen in the marketplace. So it's refreshing.
Yes, definitely. And with that said, let's go ahead and talk it because you've got a couple of different things that you've done in your career, and I want to start with the stuff that you do with Right On Creative, like your your marketing stuff is based around something very, very different than a lot of marketers do and preach, which is you focus on the pleasure side, not the pain side. And for me, that resonates so well. I love it. And I'd love for you to talk about that. Like, how did you get started in this side of what you're doing to begin with?
Oh yeah, this is good. So, my business is 20 years young now. So I started Right on Creative in 2003. And I actually had resigned from an advertising agency and I had a non-compete back in the day. And so I decided, well, let's just go global. And I started studying with the very top marketers and copywriters in the online space. And what I noticed is that everyone was teaching the antiquated problem, agitate, and solve approach to marketing. And I'm not going to say that all of that framework is obsolete, but I will say that the piece of it where we really focus on the problem and then we're supposed to poke at the pain points, that was a pain point for me, honestly, and for all of my clients. And what I saw happening is people were investing in these, top of the game gurus to figure out their pain points and to map everything out for them in that context, and it simply wasn't resonating with their ideal client. So people were coming to me and saying, Lisa, what's going on here? We've dropped a lot of money to get our marketing message dialed in. We know what the pain points are, but people aren't responding. And so I would just kind of back up the bus, so to speak, and say, hey, let's take a look at this with an objective perspective. And let me ask you this: when someone points out all of your problems and then amplifies those, how likely are you to actually work with them? And they'd get really, really quiet. And they'd think, oh, wow, yeah. And I'm like, so here's the thing: marketing and sales are all about relationships. And if you want to build relationships, then maybe paint a picture of possibility and focus on those passion points. Let's show people how we can get them from where they are to where they want to be without making them feel horrible in the process. And that's really how it started. But I was quiet about it because, Eli, I was in rooms with the top people in the industry. And I was questioning myself, thinking, well, if they're doing this, it has to be right. Well, it wasn't. And I was right. And quite frankly, it's just taken on a life of its own. It really, really, truly has. I basically was doing this intuitively because that's the way that I work in, a lot of capacity. I'm very, very intuitive. And then I think it was well over a decade ago, I was featured on the cover of Aspire magazine. My dear friend Linda Joy publishes that magazine and books and many other things. And she said, listen, we're going to feature you on the cover, and you need to name this thing that you're doing, Lisa. And it's so funny because I help other people do that, right? And she called me out beautifully and gracefully, as she does. And I was like, oh, you're right. And then I realized, well, all I'm really doing is acknowledging the challenge. Like, hey, let's meet people where they are. Mm-hmm. And then sharing the solution.
Right.
And then extending a really friendly invitation. So none of that hard sell, pushy anything. And in fact, what's really different about what I do is, so yes, absolutely, you want to know what the challenge is. We do want to know what problems people are facing so that we can come up with those solutions, but we can just meet them where they are with empathy and understanding. And the coolest part is, in the solution piece, it's not just saying, hey, this is what I have, bye. It's sharing stories and case studies and testimonials and letting people know how you can actually solve that problem, address those challenges, and get results. And this is the piece that most people miss. They try and push the sale without explaining the results, without doing any of that. And if you follow this framework, what happens is you've equipped people with the information they need to make an informed buying decision. And then all you have to say is, hey, does that sound good? Would you like to get started? Not buy now, or you can only purchase in 3 days because the deal is going to end, or, yes, urgency does work, but it's gotten out of hand. People are using a lot of the tactics and techniques that have been taught throughout the ages in a really manipulative and, let's just say, without a lot of integrity.
Right. And I think you brought up a couple of really important things with that. Number one is the fact that, yes, there are fundamental emotions that you can put into marketing. And we all know those, right? Get the scarcity. Okay. So scarcity can be a real thing, and scarcity should be a real thing ethically. And that's where a lot of people miss the boat. I know that's where, you and I've had these kind of conversations before, where reality is, you can't say there's only 100 copies if it's a digital product, right? That's just
right.
That's just a flat freaking lie.
And I've seen that all over. Yeah. That was especially way back in the day. I mean, we're going back 20 years. So, things were really the Wild West back then online, especially.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's something I think is so funny, because you come from a place of, how can we figure out, yes, we need to know what the problem is. We need to know where the pain points are, but the agitation, that whole, what's the pain point, agitate the pain point, and then try to make the sale. That agitation part doesn't really need to be there, because if they're coming to you, chances are they're already agitated. They don't need more than that. What they need is somebody who can be understanding, care about them, and then, of course, offer a solution, and a solution that actually is a real solution, instead of just, buy my thing because it's the solution to no matter what your problem is, which we've all been there. I got, one little story I'll share with this because it's very relevant. I had somebody who was in a network marketing company and they had great products. It was health related. They were great products. I used the products. I eventually stopped using the products for the very simple fact that no matter what the situation was, her product was the solution. So you could say it's cold. Oh, well, you don't have enough blood flow. You need to take more of the product. You say, hey, you know what? I'm feeling a little bit tired today because I didn't get enough sleep. Oh, well, if you want to sleep better, you should take my product. And every little time it was about the sale. And I'm like, no, that's not what the conversation was even about,
Right.
And we know those people, right?
I have two things to say. So number one, even the term pain point is not in the vocabulary of the clients that I play with. No. That is actually a pain point for them because what's happened is there's been a slow burn brainwashing that has occurred. And so everyone kind of I shouldn't say everyone, a majority of the people in the industry will use that as an opener. Like, what's your pain point? So, I have people pitching me via email all the time. What is your pain point? I'm like, delete, block. I'm not even going there. Yep. So the people that I play with are highly evolved in that they really are sensitive to language. And if you even ask them what's your pain point, they're out. It's done. So my clients, their pain points are pain points, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then the other thing you were talking about, this woman who was sharing that her solution was the only solution. What I encourage people to do when they're sharing their solution, actually even prior to sharing the solution, is to really listen to the challenge of the client and really listen. And clearly this woman was listening to you, because if you listen, you'll get clues and this might not be where they need to go. So instead of trying to even share in the context of the solution, what your results are, any of that, refer them to someone who can truly help. Don't just try and push the sale, because truly this is your reputation.
Yeah.
And people are people, not numbers. Relationships matter, and we have to really walk our talk. So I think, there's so many layers that we could go into here.
Oh yeah, definitely. So, with that, you've been in business. I think I remember just recently you were saying that you've been in business for over 20 years now, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that, to me, that's huge, because we all know that the business stats are, most businesses fail in 3 years, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But for somebody to have the longevity like that, it's like, okay, so, like you and I both have that kind of situation in common.
Right.
My first company was 30 years ago. And I think it was probably about 20 years that I decided to start migrating to the second company, which has evolved to what I do now. But there's not a lot of people that can say they've done that. And definitely not a lot of people that can say they've done the same thing for that long, which means that is endurance. And I think that's something that's a rarity in today's world. It's another reason why I like you so much, is because you got that endurance. You've got the staying power that so many people don't. Because, it goes along with the integrity thing, that a lot of people are just going after whatever they think is going to make them money. And, it's nice to be around those people that are like you, that are just like, no, I'm here because this is my purpose. This is what I do. And this is how I help people.
I love that you're saying that. I have a funny story and you'll enjoy this. So, I'm not a big fan of telemarketing at all. It just really annoys me. I understand that it can work, but for me, it's not my jam. Just yesterday, a very well-known coach's team called me up on the phone, and they're saying, have you ever considered working with X, Y, and Z? I'm not going to call them out, but very, very well known on big TV shows, all this. And I said, no, I haven't. And the guy was kind of taken aback. He's like, oh, you haven't? Well, why not? Don't you need to get more sales? Don't you want more clients? And I said, I only want the right clients. He said, well, how many outbound salespeople do you have? And I said, I have 0 outbound salespeople. And he's like, what do you mean you have 0 outbound salespeople? I said, all of my work comes via referrals, either from somebody hearing me on a podcast or my happy clients and customers, sending them my way. I don't chase people. I actually teach people, don't chase your ideal clients. Get so clear about your value proposition that you're magnetizing those clients to you. And he was just blown away. He didn't even know what to do. He's like, well, gosh, Okay. And I said, well, I've been doing it for about 20 years. So it's not like I don't have a reputation to back this up. Right.
Mhm.
But it was so funny because he was speechless. He's like, wow. And I get so many pitches for people saying, hey, we want to be your appointment setter. How would you like to talk to 20 people this week? I wouldn't.
Right.
Straight up. I'm not interested in that. I tend to work with people one to one because I am that critical thinking partner. And when we talk about long term sustainability, there are 4 core areas that I know you have to focus on in order to go the long run, period.
Mhm.
So you've got to have your plan and strategy in place. You've got to have your brand and image in place. You've got to have your messaging and your copy in place. And when you've got all that dialed in, then you're ready for some publicity and some PR. And all 4 of those cornerstones is what it takes to go the distance, period. And you can do one of them very well, but if the other ones aren't getting any attention, then you're not going to grow the way that you would like to grow. And it all starts with building a very solid foundation.
Nice. I love it. And those are such powerful things. And the funny thing, I love that when you guys like when you can stump the sales guy, that is just fun. I've been there before. So I want to shift gears a little bit because you've got a more recent passion project that you've been working on, and we mentioned it just a little bit with the book. I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about spiritual sugar.
Sure. So, spiritual sugar is my healing journey. You know, I'm a cancer thriver, and so um, it's such a fascinating story because I've always wanted to write a book, and I've been featured in, I don't know, they're behind me, 7, 8 number one international best-selling books, mostly with my marketing philosophies. However, one of them, Success Rituals, that came out, oh, I don't know, well over a decade ago. I actually wrote a chapter in that book about how to succeed personally, professionally, and spiritually. So I've always been very spiritual,
Mhm.
but I kind of just kept it to myself for the most part, except for in that best-selling book. And then in 2015, I received a divine download from the creator that said, hey, you're going to write a book. It's going to be called Spiritual Sugar. It's going to be about healing with love. And quite frankly, I freaked out because I'm already teaching marketing with integrity. And I'm like, okay, creator, you do know that you already have me teaching something that most people think is an oxymoron. And it's finally, after decades, catching on. And so what makes you think I can write a book about about healing? So anyway, I journaled about it and set it aside. And fast forward to 2 years after that, I was facing a pretty severe diagnosis of throat cancer. And I was kind of just sitting in inquiry thinking, oh my gosh, you know, what the heck am I going to do? And I got another message that said, don't worry, you'll heal with love. And I remembered the journal entry. I went and pulled out my journal. I hadn't torched that one. I often torch them, but I hadn't torched that one. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. I bought the domain name and I started building the brand out while I was healing in true entrepreneurial fashion, right? So finally, on my 5-year all clear for the throat cancer, I decided to publish the book, and I did, and it was on your birthday, Eli.
Mhm.
So 11/22 of 22 is when Spiritual Sugar was born. So it is a passion project, and it is divinely guided. And I always say that while it is kind of, it's my story, but this is really of me and through me, but not really mine, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Okay.
And so, you know, it came out, it became a number one international bestseller. And I self-published, so I didn't have time to wait around and try and get a book deal because book deals don't actually turn out to be as lucrative as they once were, and you end up having to do a lot of the marketing anyway, and then
Right.
also giving away a lot of the rights and royalties. So I thought, well, that doesn't sound like fun, or it doesn't sound very smart either. So I had actually already established Right on Creative Publishing, the imprint,
Mhm.
over a decade ago because I knew I was going to write a book.
Right.
So today, Spiritual Sugar, the divine ingredients to heal yourself with love, which is Right on Creative Publishing's first imprint, is a number one international bestseller and now an award winner.
That's
Just I
awesome.
just won the American Writing Award. I'm the winner in the spirituality category. And so this is a lifelong dream of mine. When I was a little girl, I dreamed of writing books. I would go down to the little bookmobile. I grew up in a very rural area, and I would pour through the books. I'd look at all of the imprints, Penguin, Random House, all of that. And I'd also look at the Caldecott and Newbery Award winners. And I would think, someday I want to do that. So the little girl in me is very happy. And also the book is now zipping around on that bookmobile in the rural area where I grew up. So that's my favorite placement. I mean, you can find it at Barnes and Noble and all the other places, but it truly is my love letter to humanity.
Right.
And I am honored to have two iconic bookends in the form of a foreword by Dr. Joe Vitale
Mm-hmm.
and an afterword by Neil Donald Walsh. And what cracks me up about that in a really good way is that so many, many years ago, when The Secret first came out, I watched it. I actually watched it with former mentor and still a dear friend, Lori Morgan Ferrero, at one of her copywriting boot camps. She played it for everyone. It was one of our kind of extracurricular things.
Right.
And when I look back and I think, gosh, that movie was eye-opening and inspiring, and seeing those two gentlemen in that movie, I did not imagine at that time that I would be sitting here with you today saying, and guess what? Two of the guys from The Secret gave me a
That is awesome.
forward and afterward. And I'm going to tell you, I cried when I read them. It's so touching. And the stories that I'm getting from people, just one lady started reading it, and just one of the questions that I asked, she said it changed the whole trajectory of how she and her husband are living.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels good and overwhelming all at once.
Right. That is awesome. It's cool that you got that, because I know Joe from forever ago. It's funny you mentioned Lori. I haven't heard that name in a very long time either. That just goes to show how old we really are.
We've been around a while, that's
we've been around for a long time. Yeah, that's awesome though. And just so everybody is clear, I've actually read Spiritual Sugar. It was an amazing book. I honestly think everybody needs to read it, just because it kind of gets your brain thinking in different ways. And that's more than anything else, because you cover a lot of different modalities, I guess would be a good term, for how to heal yourself. And the great thing is, it's not like you have to do this thing. It's like, no, here's some stuff you could try, and here's some stuff you could try, and here's some stuff you could learn about this thing. And it's very open to a lot of the stuff that some of it you could say, we joke on the woo-woo side of things. Some of it is more grounded in not science. It is science, but it's different than, not traditional Western medicine type of stuff. But there's so much out there, and we've all heard the terms of these things that give us the power to heal ourselves in different scenarios. But it's like you hear a little bit over here and they think that's the thing, and it's a little bit over here and that's the thing. You cover pretty much all of it and say, you know what? Here's a whole bunch of stuff, and it's not a one size fits all, which I personally thought was really powerful.
I think it's so important that you brought that up, because, when we were playing with the subtitle, The Divine Ingredients to Heal Yourself with Love, I was working with Vicki Winterton at the time, and unfortunately she passed in the process of all of this. So I have a dedication in the book to her. Right. We were playing with it, and she said she wanted it to be the divine recipe. And I said, Vicki, I can't give anybody a recipe, because every person is different. Every cancer is different, and it would be totally negligent. So it's got to be the divine ingredients. They can create their own recipe. Right. And so you're absolutely right. And all of okay, so the book comes in 3 sections to start with. Let me just back up. So yes, we've got The Awakening, which is kind of my story, and the story of me getting this message that freaked me out to write the book. And then all of that, right? And some of the trials and tribulations that I went through dealing with Western medicine, and why I'm so adamant that you have to be your own advocate and question everything. So that's the cool part. And then the part that you were talking about there, it's called Spiritual Tools. And there's over 30 different non-traditional modalities that are actually ancient wisdom that can help us heal ourselves, that have been around for ages.
Right.
And I tried every single one of them. So I didn't put anything in the book that I didn't personally experience. Now, do I incorporate every one of these things into my daily life now? No, there are specific things that I definitely have held on to. I still love sound baths and singing bowls. That is a part of my ongoing maintenance, right? So there's so many things that you can look at. And you did touch on that I cover pretty much everything. I found that I didn't. I'm working on book 2.
Okay.
There are a bunch more modalities that I've learned about that I want to share with people, because this is, Neil Donald Walsh said it is a reference guide. He said he hadn't seen anything like it. And that is high praise, right? And that, of course, touched my heart. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. And then the final part is there's 7 spiritual sugar principles that you can choose to fortify, in your life. And it's a personal journey. And I think the fun thing is, because I've always just been a writing geek, it's just the way it is. There's journal prompts throughout. I call them spiritual sugar heart sparks. So I want people to think. I've always been about breaking the trance, challenging the status quo, questioning everything, engaging critical thinking. And this book definitely does that, but it does it in a really beautiful way, I think.
Right. I can agree with that. As like I said, I actually did read it. So many people that get the book and they talk about the book and they didn't read the book. I have actually read the book. Matter of fact, I remember.
I'm so glad.
Sending you a message.
Yeah, so I know, and you gave me a beautiful review on Amazon for it as well, and I love that you read it, because I'll tell you, I'm getting a lot of requests for interviews, and I'm beginning to think that I have to require that they read it. Honestly.
Yeah.
And I recently had a woman interview me. She's this lovely lady, and my book was probably one of the first ones that she's read of people she interviews.
Right.
And she was transparent about it, so I'm not speaking out of turn, but I thought, wow, that's really cool. And that's an honor. Thank you for reading it. And so, yeah, it's so fascinating just how things come full circle, and how we can often turn our trials and tribulations into triumphs.
Right. Awesome. This was cool. Definitely, for anybody out there, you definitely want to pick up a copy of Spiritual Sugar. Highly recommend it. It's an amazing book, and it doesn't matter where your status is on life, spirituality, any of that kind of stuff. It's a good book. It's something that's going to give you a lot to think about. And even if you get one little sprinkle of spiritual sugar out of it, it's well worth it just by itself. So go pick up a copy of it. So what's next for you? What kind of fun things are the next piece of the puzzle for you?
Well, it's really fascinating. I've always done high-level strategy, and one of the things that I offer are content strategy plans. Yeah. So I will help people map out their marketing plan for the quarter based on their content, right? Because it does start with your message. That's why, I've got the podcast, Your Message Matters, all these things. It's super important. What I'm getting now are people coming to me who are really very interested in anchoring in their legacy in the form of a book.
Okay.
And the fact of the matter is, I can help people do that. So I'm using the container of the content strategy plan to work with people to map out their book idea and plan. We usually work together for 3 months to get that done. And then they can decide if they're going to self-publish or take it to a publisher or do what they want to do. So it's really fun. I'm working with a client right now and mapping out his big legacy work and book. And I just can't wait to see this all come to fruition. And one of the things that I will say to anyone who has created a body of work, it's time to turn that into your legacy. And I think it's super important to have both digital books and also hard copy books, or soft copy, doesn't matter, because we can't always rely on the internet. We just can't. And I know that's funny to hear someone who's been in internet marketing for decades, but the truth is everything is changing. Many things with artificial intelligence are impacting what we're doing today. I see so many people jumping on the bandwagon now, claiming they're copywriters, but they're simply using AI to create the content. Yeah. And they're not even realizing the ramifications of that, and that they're going to get dinged by Facebook and Google because they can tell that it's been created by AI and that it's not a critical thinking piece of information.
Right.
And the other thing about that, I'm kind of riffing on AI for a minute. I mean, there's good things about it too.
You and I've had that conversation. We could go on a whole show about that.
I know. But what concerns me most is the worry of plagiarism and things like that. I mean, when people have really put their blood, sweat, and tears into content, which is what true content creators do, and then to have someone, show up on the scene and say, oh, well, this AI can create even better content. Well, that's fine. Give that a shot. But it's also going to probably hurt you in the long run. And right now, people are jumping on it. They're making lots of money. They're doing all these things. Fantastic. I'm not interested in that. And I just want people to be cautious about it because we don't know what's going to happen. And AI still hallucinates. We talked about this out of curiosity. I asked it about me. Tell me about Lisa Manyon. And it said that I focused on pain point marketing, exact opposite of what I do. It brought up 6 books that supposedly I had authored that I've never even heard of.
Yep.
And it just made stuff up. They call it hallucinating. So if it doesn't have the answers that it thinks you want, it'll just randomly make them up for you. How convenient is that? So fact checking is really big. We already had to worry about what's true and what's not true with all the division and weirdness going on in the world. And now we've got AI generating made up things and hallucinating, and who knows what's real or not real anymore.
Right. Is there something about electric dreams? Do robots dream electric sheep? Something like that? Yeah. Like I said, we could go through a whole thing with that. And I think there's something, and I know you and I've talked about this, and I've said this with several people. The one thing about using it, AI is a great tool to help you generate ideas and to streamline a lot of things. Like one thing I do is I love to take, like I'll use interviews and I let AI recap the interview, but it's my stuff or it's our stuff, it's pulling off of actual real stuff to summarize it for me.
Right.
That's great use for it. But one thing that I have found is that, like, I've had clients that have sent me stuff and said, hey, take a look at this. And I look at it and I'm like, you didn't write that. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, you didn't write that. I guarantee it. And they're like, well, no. Okay. How do you know? And I'm like, you used AI to write that. And they're like, well, how do you know? I'm like, because it's got no heart.
Right. It's so true. And I mean, I'm not bashing technology because clearly I love it as well. And I think that it can be good for some outlines of things and things like that. But I of course blogged about this, and I did an episode of Your Message Matters about this as well. And it's just a fascinating thing to me to see how things are evolving. And as someone who helps people dial in their value proposition and their core messaging, it's a sensitive topic for me because it takes heart and soul to do that.
Right.
And so when you said what's next for me, I'm going to continue helping people do that. I've got the messenger quiz that people can take to figure out, what their messenger style is. And then they can also learn how to apply the challenge, solution, and invitation framework to their business messaging. And oftentimes just that exercise is all they need. And then they go on their merry way and they never hire me. And that's totally fine. For those who want additional help, they can just, schedule a quick start strategy session with me for a very affordable fee. And I'll help them dial that in quickly. And I am really good at that, actually. I can dial things in pretty quickly.
Yeah, I know you are. Okay, so let's go ahead and wrap it up. I got 2 final questions for you.
Okay.
Okay. The second to the last question is going to be, what does meet cool people mean to you?
Well, you're the one that introduced me to this. I mean, I've always liked cool people, and I've always loved purple. You know that. We bonded over that. But, it means being real and authentic. And it means walking your talk and showing up and having actual conversations, right? It's what you're doing. You're demonstrating that. And I so appreciate and respect that because there isn't a lot of that going on.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So last question. People are going to want to connect with you. They need to get the book. Book's on Amazon. You can buy it all over wonderful places. You have a website for it as well. But then you have all your other stuff. So what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Well, here's where it gets super fun because I'm a multi-passionate person. 2 ways. If you're interested in spiritual sugar, go to spiritualsugar.com. Yep. If you're interested in Right On Creative, go to rightoncreative.com. Of course, in the About section on Right On Creative, you'll still get redirected over to Spiritual Sugar, but there's a main website just for the book as well.
Right. Awesome. Very cool. Well, Lisa, it is always fun to have a good chat with you. We get along. We could talk for hours, and we have, which is
yes, great. We have, and we will again.
And we will again. We always have that. We always have a lot of fun with that. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you. And if there's anything I can do to help you out, always let me know.
I will. I'm going to tap into that strategic mind of yours because it is rare, and I appreciate it.
Awesome. I love it. All right. So everybody out there, if you like this episode, get out there, like it, subscribe, all the fun things, and reach out, connect with Lisa. Get out there, have an amazing day. And as always, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know. Take care.
And that wraps up another Meet Cool People show. Now, if you like what you heard, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, or review so I can help introduce these amazing cool people to even more amazing cool people. And just remember, meeting cool people is just the beginning. You need to have a system in place to follow up with the amazing people that you meet. This is exactly what we do for our clients. If you'd like to see if my team and I can help you, go to followuprockstar.com and check out the case study video to see exactly how we're helping our clients turn casual connections into cash clients for life. Again, go to followuprockstar.com and we'll see how we can work together to turn you into a follow-up rockstar.